Flight 426. Hijacking the narrative. The Cold War, terror, and the Soviet shadow. A plane disappears from the sky. Not in war. Not in accident. But by design. July 1968. A civilian airliner is seized and redirected into history. This is not just a hijacking. This is the beginning of something new. A battlefield without borders. 1 year earlier, the Middle East had been reshaped in 6 days. The shockwaves reached far beyond the region, into embassies, intelligence agencies, and the highest levels of global power. In Moscow, strategy was recalculated. At the center of it, Yuri Andropov, chairman of the KGB, master of what the Soviets called active measures. Not just espionage, not just intelligence, but influence, narrative, perception. A new language began to spread. Zionism, redefined as racism, as colonialism, as a global threat. Not only in Moscow, but across international institutions. But ideology alone was not enough. A new weapon was emerging. Not armies, not tanks, but attention. Global, immediate, unavoidable. Airplanes became targets, not for destruction, but for spectacle. At the center of this shift, a man with a different kind of vision. George Habash, a doctor, a nationalist, turned revolutionary. After 1967, his movement changed. Nationalism became revolution, and revolution became global. The organization he led, the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, would redefine the battlefield. July 1968. El Al, Flight 426, hijacking. The plane is taken, redirected, controlled. No explosion, no crash. Something more powerful. A message. The world was watching, and it would never look away again. As the aircraft descended over North Africa, the destination was no longer Rome or Tel Aviv. It was Algiers, a city that would soon find itself at the center of an international crisis. Algerian authorities were caught off guard. There was no established protocol, no precedent for what had just arrived on their runway. A hijacked civilian aircraft carrying dozens of foreign nationals. Within hours, negotiations began. The three hijackers, members of the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, presented their demands: prisoner exchanges, political recognition, and time. In Israel, the message arrived quickly. Authorities in Tel Aviv were informed of the diversion. The government moved cautiously. This was no longer an aviation incident. It was a political confrontation. Within days, a first decision. The hijackers released the non-Israeli passengers. 32 individuals freed. Soon after, another step. Women and children were allowed to leave. The number of hostages narrowed. The message became clearer. This was no longer about everyone on board. The remaining hostages, primarily Israeli nationals and crew, were taken from the aircraft. Held under guard, in secure locations in Algiers, out of sight, but not out of the negotiation. The standoff stretched on. Days turned into weeks. Behind closed doors, negotiations intensified. And finally, an agreement, a prisoner exchange. After 39 days, the remaining hostages were released. The flight home was quiet. No headlines in that moment, no cameras on board, just survivors returning to Israel.
מטוס אל על שהיה בדרכו מרומא לתל אביב נחטף על ידי ערבים והובא לאלג'יר. נוסעי המטוס שאינם בעלי אזרחות ישראלית שוחררו ונשלחו לאירופה. 6 מהם הגיעו למחרת לישראל וסיפרו על קורותיהם.
Behind the scenes, another layer of the story was unfolding. The Palestine Liberation Organization, formed in 1964, was not created in Moscow, but it did not operate in isolation. Declassified intelligence would later state, the USSR has been the principal supplier of arms to the PLO. Training, equipment, political backing. In 1974, a turning point. A PLO office opens in Moscow. Archival materials suggest that contacts not only existed, they were systemic, between Soviet intelligence and militant actors. The Cold War was not only fought in Berlin or Vietnam. It was fought in airports, in headlines, in the minds of millions. A new kind of warfare had emerged. Stateless, global, psychological. And once it began, it never truly stopped.